I just wanted to ask you specifically about something that you said in the presentation here, that you are actually opposed to having a referendum.
Yes.
And you cited Brexit as not a good result. What you're currently doing is educating the public on the alternatives. Mm-hmm. Would that not make that referendum informed?
I'm not altogether sure that it would. As much as we are trying to provide information and background, it's very, very difficult to get your head wrapped around everything.
Yeah.
And I have a fear that people could use the notion of a referendum in an unscrupulous way. And if you think about what happened during the Brexit referendum, people abused the situation and misused money, opportunity, resources in order to convince people that there was something evil afoot in terms of the European Union. And so because of that possibility, I have very real concerns. We had a referendum in Ontario about changing the voting system about 9 or 10 years ago. And people voted for what they understood and knew without making any effort to find out about other possibilities. And I worry about that. I want there to be this dialogue and discussion. And it may seem contradictory, but I think, as I said, the danger of a referendum is that there are those who may have resources beyond the ability of a lot of us to influence in a negative way.
Well, some would argue that when you allow politicians, especially the ones in power right now, mm-hmm. to determine the way officials are elected, mm-hmm. They may actually change things to work in their favor, and I wouldn't yes. blame them, because if you're in a political party, your job is to stay in power, and if that's not your goal, you should find another job.
Well, I think you've touched on something. When the committee was struck last June, the government did influence it in favor of the government. That's why we pushed back so hard on that situation and insisted that the committee be more representative. But I can tell you that when I went out and asked about the voting system 20 years ago, it was very, very clear that something other than first past the post would serve us better in terms of making sure there were women and First Nations and visible minorities and LGBTQ trans people as part of our legislatures. And that's where I would like to see this nation go, more representative in terms of the people who actually are able to attain that seat and support this nation and our objectives. The reality now is that there are parties who have a great deal of money, power, and they will direct things in a way that suits them. But that's not the kind of parliament that I would like to see. So when 20 years ago I did that exercise, that work, it became very clear to me that we had to find something better and more democratic. So that's where I am coming from. Parliament, I believe in the power of Parliament. I don't like how it's been gerrymandered and manipulated in many, many elections, because it doesn't represent an accurate vision of what this country can be. There have to be more and different groups represented, and that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, my last question
Sure.
is, do you have any concern about transparency? I know that you guys are doing e-consultations and also like consultations in person. Who analyzes the data,
Yes.
and who is going to, or how do we know that we're
Yes.
getting exactly what you're receiving?
And that's exactly the concern that we expressed last June about any individual group or government controlling the situation. And that's what I think is so very, very good about what is happening here today. It's an independent political science group of students, professors who are experts in political science. They're gathering the data from all of those various focus groups, those breakout groups, and I have faith that it will indeed be nonpartisan and accurate and fair. I wish all of the town halls were like that, but I know this one is, and we'll certainly be pushing to make sure that this kind of representative town hall is given full consideration when whatever decision or whatever final report is made.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and
quite
I appreciate your answers.